Okay,
Thank you
I
very
hope
much,
you are in
sir,
a.
for your kind words. I think students
I
are
hope you are
already
you
enduring.
are in Bhubaneswar.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
I am in Bhubaneswar. I have just got late to reach my home. I have to fly at 4:30. 4:30, I have to start to airport. So in between, because next 2 days are packed. This is first time I am missing the an invitation from CMDR in person. So I am also very sad for that. But things are because of some issues. I had to plan this, and it is an unplanned travel. So that created lot of inconvenience for the organizers. Also, I am very sorry for that. Uh, and, is this fan is creating any problem to listen? Hello, audience.
No,
Professor
sir.
Sidhu.
It is audible, sir.
It is okay, na? So okay, so no problem. So let me start my talk for the day. So today, as I said, that today I'll share some of the research experiences from whatever I have gained. Research is like a learning; it never ends. Every day has its own challenges. Every day you find that you do not know anything. You are starting from scratch, and the day in the research, many of the uh, people nowadays asserts they are so-called inverted comma experts. So no problem in asserting experts, but experts in what? Experts in learning. Does not mean that experts, once you become the expert, means there is nothing, no room for the learning. So research is a area every day has to be rediscovered. Every day you have to position yourself to remain meaningful, because there is lot of research nowadays. The research claim that they have find out many new things, but at the end of the day, if somebody takes a closer look at the research work, they found that hardly there is any new insight. Most of the research are replicative research, but that itself I am not criticized. In fact, I'll suggest the young scholars has to do lot of repetitive research, because once if you those who are familiar with the statistics and econometrics, you know that one of the principal cornerstone of the statistics is validation, research validation. That means already a hypothesis which has been proven, so you are re-verifying it whether that hypothesis still holds or not. So lot of this replicative research or repeated research has to be there, because it validates the established theories. With the progress of time and change in the society, social transformation and transformation in related sectors, components, determinants in statistics language, though which affects the outcome, the determinants. These hypotheses need again and again to be verified, re-verified, and retold. So, replicative research for a young scholar, many of us started just like you, the way you are listening us today, via the software, via the laptop or projector. That day we used to listen in person. We used to go to the research methodology courses and listen the persons just like you, with minimum support from ICT. Everything has to be noted down. So that's how we started, and the overall trend is going on like this. So, as a young scholar, you should not, if somebody tells you, hey, what are you doing? Already this research has been done. Then, sir, then you tell, sir, no problem. It has been retold. But yes, I am looking at it in a different context. That context may be very micro context. It can be a small village. It can be in a habitat of a village. So for past 20 days, you have must have listened lot of things from lot of experts, because I know CMDR always brings the best for their research methodology courses. So you have lot of knowledge. So something which I am telling or I am going to tell may be already known to you, but if for a beginner, Sometimes this repetitive listening also helps to recall and understand the same thing from different perspectives. So since today I am not using PowerPoint, I request all the participants to be vigilant, and whenever I say please note down, then you note down. So the first thing what I have told so far, that as a young researcher, we you get an opportunity for a doctoral work, for a assignment, because many of the universities nowadays, especially in private corporate universities like Osaka, Flame, Nada, Sivnadar, those kind of universities in short time made mark in the research, in policy research especially. Now Niti Aayog, anything you take, you'll find OP Jindal, a Sivnadar, or a Flame, or a Kriya, because Ajim Premji, because why? The over the years, what they did, from the masters, they introduced this field-based research as a compulsory component in their post-graduation and graduation studies. So the student who is barely in their 20s, they will not be in a position to do a very innovative research. What they'll do, they'll go for mostly a replicative one, but those kind of replicative research gives lot of things. What is research? Research is nothing but thinking in an organized way, you positioned. So if you have already attended the class in the past 2 weeks, how research starts. Research starts from your inquiry to certain phenomenon, certain thing, certain event, which triggers interest in you or which creates curiosity in you. Once the curiosity is understood, then what you do, you try to find out why this event takes place, what causes these events, and how this event is going to affect other events. So these kind of nature of thinking, nature of inquiry triggers in you what is the called a research aptitude, or to look at the things in deeper way, to research the meaning, revalidate the findings, and retold the stories. Okay, so these are important terms I'm using. Be very vigilant. This is recorded. You can listen again also, but if possible make a note. So these are the things you do. So the day you think for something, some inquiry interest you, trigger your brain that I should look deeper into it, that day you are initiated automatically into field of research. You don't have to a lecture, you don't have to assistant professor for research. Research can be by any field. You can be a manager, you can be a bureaucrat, you can be a social activist, anything. You when you are an artist, then also your this research aptitude is very much important. Research aptitude is nothing. You don't have to read hundreds of books, articles. You don't have to formally join a PhD program. Of course, for certificate, yes, but becoming a researcher just needs a kind of inquiry, intuitive mind, is what Amartya Sen calls it. So this inquiry, the nature of inquiry, has to be triggered in your brain. Then you, what you do, you read that if somebody else has worked on it, that is nothing but your literature review. That is nothing but collecting the secondary data. Then you go into deeper, then you collect your own data. Let's see, if I found some data, then see whether this thing is working or not. Then that process is nothing but the revalidation you are doing. That's how you become a researcher. That's how the private universities, they have been successful compared to many universities in public funding funded ones, that they triggered this research very casually and systematically into the students. And when at the end of the graduation, if you go to a OP Jindal site, you a Flame site, or a Sivnadar site, or a Kriya University site, you will find beautiful monographs, articles, dissertations have been written by the master students. Some of them are also being published in very high quality, and now non-existent this UGC 2 journals, UGC Scopus journals. So Scopus index is still there, but UGC is not there. So Scopus publications you will find, because how they did it. Suppose 100 people doing research, but 2 or 3 people they come out with very good research insight, which the publisher found suitable, and they found it is a contribution into the respective area. Why I am telling these things again and again? Because whatever these 15, 16 people I can see from this screen, I understood that you are just initiating research. Maybe some of you are already into teaching, but looking to strengthen your research, and you have must have a reference research book, 3 4 things. But then you must be surprised. Then what new things we are going to listen or we are going to gain? The thing is that most of these things are already available in the courses. You have gone through it, but sometimes we forget how to practice it, how to practice systematically. So after this course, if you are able to guide your research thinking, research process in a systematic way, in a way which has been approved by the scientific community and published in several reference books, that itself will be the most enduring outcome of this course. So first I started that a repetitive, you will have to most likely you do a repetitive study. Now the whatever you do the next one, now next one you come across basically an inductive and deductive study. So what is this inductive and deductive study? Inductive study is basically when you look at the phenomenon, you look at the evidence collected in form of data. I'll not go into it because some of the statistician experts would have told what is a data, scientific data, and what is a statistical data, and what is a qualitative data and what is a quantitative data. So this data background, if you have already there, so I'll not focus on this definition and their properties, but this inquiry itself, this inductive inquiry itself is driven by data. Data will drive your hypothesis. So when data driven hypothesis leads to a particular research outcome or research policy, that's called a inductive method. Now the deductive method, what is the deductive method? Deductive method is you have already a research proposition, a hypothesis which is testable, and you I hope, please note here, when you say the hypothesis, we have to be very very careful. Hardly any research book put emphasis on this. They, in passing, they say that it is called workable hypothesis. Hypothesis can be anything, but every hypothesis cannot be can be tested. Like if I say there is God, it is a hypothesis, but how to prove it? So it is not provable with the scientific tools available with us. So the workable hypothesis has to be framed. From the deductive idea, you find out the hypothesis, we find out the event, from you narrow it down to a workable hypothesis, and then you develop your research tools, research frame, research sample, research design to suit to the testing of this hypothesis. Deductive approach is always, some people put lot of emphasis on it because our natural science testing mostly they go by this, what is called, sometimes this clinical research they were driven by this data, then they come out with the research inference or hypothesis. But sometimes the hypothesis led testing, gathering, collecting data, and application of statistics, it is valued, especially in development economics more. Your RCT method, random control testing approach, and all these methods, they are basically, they have a hypothesis that if a particular intervention is made, then child nutritional outcome improves, child's education improves, so that you are already have a hypothesis which you are going to test. But inductive approach is very different. You look at different source of the phenomenon and its readings you collect in from data, then you develop a hypothesis. So the debate between which one is better, inductive or deductive, it depends upon what is your training, what is your background, because economists and other quantitative experts, they prefer deductive approach because it is, you can control the research environment, you can control, you can narrow down the uncertainties, you can reduce the so-called errors, the sum of errors in a statistical model or residuals you can control, but in inductive approach you cannot. So this inductive and deductive approach is very important to understand in a research environment. That what kind of research, many people what they do, they actually reach to a deductive hypothesis from an inductive method. So that process is very much wrong. Once you do the inductive process, then you have to stay that entire process is inductive. You cannot mix the two. Many people do it advantageously. I'll tell you in recent days, because as part of couple of journals I am in the editorial board, particularly Health Empirics, Journal of Business and Economics. So those kind of journals, what they have started a kind of a movement, you can say, that mixed method does not mean that you collect quantitative data and qualitative data both in a research and complement the findings. Generally, what we do, we mix something, we say we have done a structured household survey and a community survey we have done through FGD case studies and interviews. So it is a mixed method and we present the data. Now, the statisticians and experts are disagreeing with this approach. Why? Because they are saying different stakeholders have been interviewed with different tools in different conditions at different time periods. So, mixing them together does not mean it is a mixed method approach. Mixed method approach is certain part of inquiry has been done through a proper deductive approach and certain part of the inquiry has been done through a inductive approach, because inductive approach research mainly it includes the qualitative data collection, but qualitative that does not mean that always inductive approach will be qualitative, it can be quantitative also. In fact, my own PhD research has been one of its kind because it did not come out with any kind of a very superior research proposition regarding undernutrition. But what I did, I did not take a proposition. Let's say these are the community, household, then the individual health conditions. These will affect the undernutrition outcome of the children. What I did, that I used the available surveys like NFHS and NSSO and some other studies, published studies, to gather that what are the factors affecting undernutrition, then I synthesize. So it was basically a inductive approach, but in the process, when I made my research for the award, I made the submission, then one of the expert find out that I made a huge mistake of starting from an inductive approach and then get into a deductive kind of approach. That's why my thesis, of course, came back. And coming back, thesis is not a, you don't have to be bothered for that, or you admit. Ultimately, what happens that whatever knowledge you have given, that knowledge is a pure finding of yours. So I take it. Just took me couple of months to rectify it. So that approach, you have to be very very careful that where you when the fallacy happens, the people why the researchers, most of researchers go for deductive, because deductive approach they know this fallacy of committing a type 2 error, that from deductive to inductive will not happen because everything has been conceptualized, so it will fall in place. But inductive, you start from a vast kind of information, then you narrow down, and inadvertently you made a mistake when you are going into a kind of a deductive approach. So this inductive and deductive, then
ಹೋಗಿ
mixed
ಸರ್
method.
ಪ್ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತೆ
G, hello.
ನಿನ್ನೆನೆ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
Anybody is saying something, please? Hello, Dr. Durgappa, please.
No, no, sir. You carry on, please.
Uh-huh. Any problem you can intervene, no problem, because I'm talking extempo, so I'm actually closing my eyes and I'm
No,
telling
no.
this as if reading. So you can always tell me that if something is not understandable, you are not understanding, you can always stop me. So first, I started with the need for a replicative research and how it strengthens the research orientation. Research, it prepares the research grassroots worker who graduates to experts. Then I come into that what kind of research when you start, what kind of the common problems we face. The problem we face is one is this inductive and deductive and so-called mixed method. Because why I'm emphasizing it, you may tell this is all known. No, the problem is always we can write a literature, but we forget the grammars or we forget the letters, sequence of the letters, and how to use it. Like our all our mother tongues have these main letters, then these small letters, then the vowels. So how to use them, research has its own language. That's why I'm spending a lot of time on it. Why what we are doing nowadays in our attempt to publish papers, then improve our standing in the community, research community, many of these things we are forgetting. So that's why I am focusing on this. So deductive, inductive, and the mixed method. So the mixed method is nowadays the way it is understood, this qualitative plus quantitative. No, this is not mixed method. Mixed method is that certain part of inquiry you are making using tools which are mostly close-ended, and you are collecting it from a stratified scientific sampling, and a part of inquiry you are to supplement, you are doing it at a community level, group level, where administering a individual specific tool is not possible. So then it becomes mixed method. It does not mean, suppose what has happened, let's for example, in a recent project, because sometimes have to do project as the funding agency wants. So they want us, you do a household survey.
सर मैं यूज ट्रैकर सर
Sir, you are not audible and visible.
Sir, not audible, sir.
Sorry, there is some network error. Hello, hello.
Yes, sir. Now you are
Yes.
audible.
no.
So this inductive, deductive, and mixed method, you have to be very, very careful whenever you are doing mixed method. So that an example I was giving. So they are covering other stakeholders through open interviews, case studies, and focus group discussions. But one of the expert, appointed by Niti Aayog, they pointed out that cannot be called a mixed method because you are using a quantitative for a different purpose and qualitative for a different purpose. Certain individuals you can identify, they are numerous, so you are taking a sample from that population, you defining a sampling frame, then drawing a sample, and again making a stratified sampling, and some other stakeholders, you know, they are numerically not superior, so you are going and doing a one-to-one interview. So how many of us, I'll ask, even I know that many of the senior researchers also, they do not know when they talk about research, when they do a research, they do not know that what is the implication of the universe, what is the implication of the population, what is the implication of population, or what is the what is the
Sir, your audio is not connected.
Sir,
hello.
Yes, sir. Now it's audible.
Please let me know if because I found that the connection was not there. Mhm. Is there a problem from my side or your side, sir? Hello.
I think your side.
Okay, okay. Sorry for that. So this is this is how the mixed method, we have to be very, very careful that when we call about mixed method, the mixed method does not mean that you apply some statistical some inductive or deductive approach for a set of let's say households or individuals, then you for the stakeholders you apply the other. And many people argue that when we synthesize the findings from the household using the quantitative, and from the non other stakeholders from the qualitative, and when synthesize them, it becomes a mixed method approach. So there is no thumb rule that to define it, but it is always advisable, given the scrutiny of the editorial boards of many renowned journals, that you have to be very careful about first thing, what is purpose of our research, what was our hypothesis, how many research stakeholders are there, from them we have to collect the information, and what are the methods possible we can collect the information from them. So then only it can, when we triangulate the findings from the different stakeholders, one is numerically superior, and it is possible to collect data from using a quantifiable tables, a quantifiable data, and the other set of stakeholders whom we since there is no number, if we collect something in a quantitative way, so how we are going to use it, what kind of statistical tools we will use it. In that case, we use the narratives, we use the kind of qualitative tools by saying that understanding their vocabularies. So that's how then we triangulate the findings from both quantitative and qualitative. So that's how we may proper mixed method approach is possible. Now the third thing is in research, because I started with, again I am repeating, why we do a repetitive research. Second, what are the research, when we are doing research, why we have to be very clear about the research approach to the research, inductive, deductive, a mixed method, and how they cannot be mixed up. Now third thing, when I am coming, so many people say that if I am doing a research and somebody has done it, let's say in Kerala, for entire state, now I'm applying in Gujarat to certain district because I am a PhD scholar. I am a small researcher without grant, and I am so some things. My purpose is some my other constraints are there. So I am using the same thesis or same hypothesis here in Gujarat in a small taluka. So many people ask, is it not a replicative research? Is it not plagiarism? Is it not unethical practice? So when we come out, when I try to argue with the researcher or those who are criticizing it, that if somebody, the first thing in research is people accept it or not, it is the budget and time. These are the two. Excuse me, anybody saying something, sir? Please write if can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Are
Yes,
you
sir.
able to? Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
because I saw we cannot hear you, sir. Okay. So the thing is that when we are doing this research, and we are finding out that there is already something is done and I have to do it. So what are the research में constant क्या है? Research में constant is the budget and time and budget. In maybe in your PhD also, earlier people used to take 10 years time per PhD, but now you see 2 plus 1 by ICSR and UGC, I think 3 plus 1 if I am correct. So within that your registration lapses. So many people say, sir, what to do now? Because I have to somehow do the degree. This is an irrelevant discussion, because somebody has done at a micro level, at a Kerala level, because he has a state funding, and you are using, you want to research that hypothesis in a micro context with your own resources. But then what is logical there, what is valid, how one should valid justify that? The justification is the purpose is what? Suppose in Kerala context, if somebody, that a particular research has said that because of investment in women's education, the women in Kerala are in a better position to take curative measures against any atrocities regarding the women. So let's say somebody is testing some report in Kerala context, some study. Actually, this is a study by CDS a very renowned professor who has proved this hypothesis. Because of education, if you find that Kerala, lot of atrocities against women, and given the population, the rate is not much different from UP. So that does not mean in Kerala society women are more oppressed, and in UP the women are more or less equivalent to Kerala women. No, because given the population difference of two states, in one case many of the atrocities are going unnoticed, where in Kerala it is very hard. You cannot stop atrocities, but once the atrocities happen, it is very hard to cover up, because there are a lot of stakeholders who will come into and seek justice for that victim. That's why that same thing, that education, women empowerment, and this seeking justice for the victim of women victims who are faced with atrocities. Now these three have some relation. You want to study in a small local context in Gujarat. Actually, it is a PhD study which is undergoing in Agroeconomic Research Center Anand. Somebody is pursuing this study, that how the education with many things, that student is working on farmer suicides and other things. So I'm not going into detail of it, but that is very interesting. I use that example because I was attending that PhD curriculum, and that person was presenting it. So somebody asked, "ये कैसा भाई Kerala? Somebody has done it Kerala. You want to do it in Anand? So what kind of research is this? What is this justification?" Then actually some of us argued like that way. I'm sharing it because that's how the conviction. As a researcher, the main thing is that how convinced you are about your approach, about your inquiry, and it is not that everybody will agree. Everybody will agree with what you are teaching, what you are looking for, what research you are actually doing. So it is your job. It is not the job of your audience or your evaluator to justify your research. It is you who has to justify. So that student research, somehow these other people also step in. But very interesting. I noticed, I always now use it example for past 1.5 years, because I found very interesting thing in that. The thing is that they are saying no issue, even if somebody has proved it with a lot of budget, lot of things in Kerala, but in state like Gujarat, which is neither Kerala nor UP, it has its own dynamics, it has its own place of defining role of women. I'm not telling Gujarat society is better or worse than Kerala or UP. That kind of statements I'm not making. But Gujarat has, women in Gujarat has their own place defined by the patriarchy, the nature of patriarchy in that state, and the kind of the institutions which supportive of women's role. So that kind of thing have said, because we all know in Gujarat, because of Gandhiji and their his movements, which has a, it was not so much kind of vocal in that time. So people did not understood that way. But Gandhiji's philosophy has a has a strong focus on the feminism also, the so-called feminism which advocates for the women-centric, women, or have the society, a societal approach in institution development, which is favorable to women. And Gandhiji's outlook, Gandhiji's way of working has a very strong role for the women. So in Gujarat, something has happened. The women, because many of the households cutting across from poor to rich, joined the movement led by Gandhiji. So Gandhiji's political movement has always a strong component of individual and household reformation also. Many of the individual, like it may be against drinking, against smoking, or the untouchability. So those kind of things, he has also a focus on the societal upliftment also. So many people who associated themselves with Gandhiji and with the organization led by him, they also started to reform their women also. So the women in Gujarat are certainly in NFHS indicators not at par with Gujarat, but they are not at par with also UP. So there is a justification for a research that how Gujarat women-led organizations or the society and different stakeholders, they are able to react when there is a case of atrocity against a women. What holds them far and what brings them back. So when that inquiry and how education plays a role, because Gujarat also has a very good, very strong, even if it is restricted to some society. Here, women for at least 150 years, they have very good exposure to education, be it in Borodhian state, because Borodhan state is a welfare state compared to the states ruled by the kings at that time in their contemporary, like by Mysore Maharaja and Baroda Holkars. They are actually putting lot of emphasis on women's education. For one reason or the other, the education was restricted for the certain sections of the society, certain privileged class, but women also get an equal chance to be represented in that education system. So Gujarat over, and then when Gandhiji starts his schools in rural areas, lot of women get opportunity to study in them. So the student wants to see that how the same hypothesis is working in a very small area, Charata region, how it is affecting the outcome of education and women atrocities, and how women are going to means uh, let's say confront it or seek justice. So that's how that student is now pursuing the work. So what we learn from this, is that this what I started, that replicative research is not always an unusual or useless thing. It is very much useful for a new micro understanding of the issue, then to understand nuances of the how it differs from one situation to other, and how different correlates or determinants are affecting this outcome in another setup. But when the overall hypothesis or the research proposition is holding true, how it works. So these nuances, what is these nuances? These nuances in research pedagogy, it is called the research process, the underlying process. So this underlying process, the how education brings the women change in women's response to atrocities in Kerala, will be very different in Gujarat, maybe in very different in UP. So, but everywhere education is a catalyst. We have to understand education is a catalyst. But as a researcher, what we do? Improve education, so women empowerment will be done. So this is our fallacy, because what we miss here is to bring forth that what is the underlying process which made this outcome possible. The outcome may be look similar in all the three places, but the outcome, the underlying process is will be not the same. So that is, as a researcher, young researcher in the group, I'll always ask you, I will always request you, always not look at the determinants and the outcome, whether using a statistical model or using some other tools. It does not matter what is the r square is, what is the other statistics is. Of course they are important, because if these are not in proper order, your model is a spurious thing, spurious correlation may be there. So these things are nobody saying these parameters are very important, the r square, the odds ratio, the standard error, but these are not the ultimate things. The most important is the process, how they interact, how the determinants interact with the outcome. This is the most important thing. Then another example I'll give you of a recent, very well-known health conference we are organizing successfully for past 12 years. So there is, as part of keynote speaker and as part of discussion. I told them in the end of the conference, because there are many of my seniors as teachers, their students I was actually looking at and evaluating their papers for the different hours. I was in the tech team, but it is actually you evaluate teachers, students. So it is the most difficult thing in life of professor researchers, when you evaluate your guru bhais, whatever guru behans, whatever you did, say your teachers, students paper. But then I made a kind of some interesting notes which everybody agreed. See, I'll tell you that what is happening in most of the demographic research, demography papers, because NFHS, after so many years, India developed one of the very strong database on women and children through NFHS. Now, men is also there on their health outcomes, on their reproductive activity, reproductive rights, on different the atrocities, women atrocities, and different kind of atrocities they undergone, the child marriages. So no doubt, but if you look at the papers used using NFHS data, you take invariably any paper on any issue. Maybe it is a women empowerment, maybe it's a low BMI, maybe it's a undernourishment, maybe it's a tobacco consumption. You will find there are 6 to 7 variables which are, you can say, culprits or catalyst or the angels. That is gender, male and female, social group. There are 4 categories only. Then there are religion, there are somebody will include some region. So like that, you will find a constant set of variables are find out to be the determinants or correlates whatever you say in the outcome. Now, what is the problem in that? Problem is nothing. This is a set of data. The data is collected for that purpose. Now the problem is, from any, if you see in a seminar or a conference, there are 300 papers. All the 300 papers are maybe, let's say, 300 issues they are looking at. Some are replicative research, some are innovative research, some are kind of some methodology they have used. But everybody at the end of the day, they are saying it is the male and female, it is the social group, it is the religion, it's the this, that. So these 5 6 variables are only affecting all the outcomes. There is nothing wrong in it, because in a statistical model, the way we build the model, we define the problem, we define the outcome, we define the correlates or determinants. So we get odds ratio, we get statistics, we explain them, and we become happy. But the problem, the problem is in such kind of research is, at the end of the day, you find out something where policy can do little. As a researcher, you always should know, like a workable hypothesis, you should have also a workable solution through your research, because your research cannot be too vague that there is caste inequality or there is regional inequality, there is communal inequality. So you take necessary measures. No, it is not the way. You have to tell that what you can do. Like for example, there is a recently a paper by me and couple of authors from Birla Institute of Technology, which will come out soon, as Muslims in Bihar, in a book. So in that book, what has happened, we look at what is the employment unemployment scenario in Bihar for Muslims. Now we have taken 6 7 months long, even the paper was completed, that to convince the people that the way the conclusion has been written is not, it is not policy worthy. Because like workable hypothesis, we should have also suggestions which are policy worthy, because many of the suggestions through research are coming. They are two types. One, either the workable solutions are not driven from the research which has been done, or second, the the conclusions drawn from the research are not workable. are not intervention worthy. So then how we break the tie finally, because that paper is going to waste and there is some money. I am also looking for that some that research grant. So then whatever small it is helpful. Small is always beautiful. So I thought that no, let's tie the break, because these people are not going to understand my point. So what we did, I told that something, you work on this way, let's see why we should tell that X should be given this policy of reservation or the other thing, because we know once you say that you give a reservation to X, somebody else will come what Y has done, why not for Y. So, but there is a work culture by ILO which has been very aggressively they are promoting across the world. That is called how to make your work environment inclusive. Once we tell that work environment should be inclusive, then it does not matter whether you are from a X religion or a Y social group. Whatever positions available in your organization has to represent all the sections in the society. That's end of the story. So nobody is going to, because it is your established government's formula that inclusive Bharat may you have to also, for inclusive Bharat, you have to do your workspace has to be inclusive. Once you tell this thing, then your solution becomes action worthy. That you say you are not arguing, you are not accusing. Hey, guy, you listen that you are not giving this section proper representation in your workforce. It is you are doing a crime. No, it's not. You say already you have done this much, but still your whatever public sector or organized sector in Bihar has not been inclusive because certain sections are not represented well. So you take necessary steps. So that's how this is how the researcher's language has to be. It's a researcher's language. Many people think it has to be confrontational. It has to be accusing somebody. It has to be blaming someone. No, it is not. A researcher's job is to maintain the social harmony and still be able to keep his voice or her voice in such a way that actually the policy changes and more people get benefit of it. So that's how the purpose of a researcher should be. So the research language, so this is one of the most important. You can note down the how what language to use. Your language of representing your research views, your expression, your analysis has to be in harmony. It should not create friction, because once you create friction, you do not know what are the cascading effects. So ultimately, which will defeat the purpose of research itself. So that that is another important thing I want to tell. Now the next one is, let's say we have started from replicative research to research language. We have reached now how we have to represent our research. In between, we talked about the deductive, inductive, mixed method, and all the things. These all things are known. These all things are there. But the problem is that like we certain people who are familiar with certain kind of ritual, they know that many things we just go by words, we go by sentences, stanzas. Okay, it has to be recited after that. So why would do that? Because we should not forget the purpose. We should not the purpose. So that's how the research also has its own kind of a. I'll say that it has its own language, its own vocabulary, where certain things has to be kept and always has to be retold, and also you have to tell yourself again and again that look, I am doing this, and I have so far done this process where I have made the fault and how I have violated the code of conduct. And then you go back. Always research is always, it is not, many say research is with engaging with society, with stakeholders, yes, but research is also equally important. You have to be um, involved with yourself. It is not only with the society, it is also with you, that how much you have understood and how much you have been part of the journey. Many people send their team, field team, data comes, they enter the data, and application, apply some methods, apply something, it becomes a good result, very good paper, they get a promotion. That's how they look at the research. No, research is not. Research is also with joining with the stakeholders, important stakeholders. You go, meet, sit with them, understand. They have told that you that they are poor, they are in difficulty, they need some help, they need some intervention from policy. But that it's good that you cannot visit 1,000 households, but at least as much households you can. You sit, you go and sit, you yourself fill up the form, you yourself interact with them. That's how you gain the strength to argue, to represent. As a researcher, what you do, you represent your research, you represent your research, different stakeholders of research. So that has to be internalized. That how you own up your research, as I told, that how much you are, that will not come if you are not involved in your research. If you are just, many of the people who use the secondary data, they will, whatever the limitation they will ask, they'll say, sorry sir, आपको data मालूम नहीं. If you would have read the questionnaire, you find out that this question is asked for only this, so how I can do it? So they escape like this. But when you ask a primary researcher, भाई तुमने नहीं क्यों नहीं किया? You have gone to the field, so you will enter. But sir, this is my mistake. I'll look in there, but that next time will not come. Why? Because that person has not gone to the field. That person has not interact with the person sufficiently to understand the issues, to understand the process. What he is presenting is whatever his data is telling to speak. So that's how he started as a deductive thing, detective. He collected data that way. But now what he is doing, because he is not involved in the research process in the field, he or she is allowing data to speak instead of himself. There he is committing this mistake. From deductive he started, and again he is depending upon inductive. कि भाई अभी मुझे बचाओ, because I am not able to, beyond statistics, I am not able to justify why this thing is happening, what is the underlying process, what is the underlying, how this outcome is shaped by these correlates or determinants, because that person is not involved in the research, whether it is small or a large. As much as possible, your engagement with different stakeholders is very much crucial. Now, the last one I'll focus on from the research. You all have these statistics classes, lot of exposures. You must have known the correlates and the determinants. Now, why this is important? I'll not go in the definition. Definition, you all know why we said a set of regressors as determinants, and why a set of determinants as correlates. So, when we study a natural phenomenon in a science, it is much more controlled environment. So you do a repetitive research. But in social context, hardly anyone, even there is only except NCR, there is hardly any data which do a large scale follow-up study in social sciences. So by de facto, we all depend upon the cross-sectional studies. These cross-sectional studies, what they do, they provide us lot of insights. But then, because as a researcher, even if the best of the best mind, given the fast pace of social transformation and interaction, nature of interaction changing across different stakeholders. Hello? Huh? Hello? Another 10 minutes, sir? Okay?
Durga sir, please mute your mic.
Ji?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Shall I
Sir,
continue?
you can continue. Yes, sir.
Continue.
Okay. So another 10, 15 minutes, okay, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So what is happening is that what I correlates and determinants. Correlates and determinants has to be very, very important to understand if you want to present the purpose of your research and validate your research. So in cross-sectional study, we get lot of a very limited opportunity to explore all the dimensions and the underlying process. Mostly cross-sectional studies have a strong policy necessity where we do not know for how long this policy will stay and what is the mandate of that policy, whether they are looking to build a policy or they are looking some feedback post policy, or they want some feedback to redesign the policy. Depending upon that, we constitute a cross-sectional study like NSSO's consumption survey. So many repetitive studies from the same consumption expenditure survey, it goes year by year. Every 5 years they do some breaks, but now again they started. So though still they are cross-sectional, they are not follow-up studies because the population and sample are different now. But what happens, many people you'll see that they use this word. These are the determinants of the outcome. So why determinants? When they are determinants, if you do the repetitive research, when you are certain that these regressors are behind this outcome in the dependent variable or change in the outcome of the variable, then only they are called the dependents. But if they are not, then they are simply correlates. So in cross-sectional study, we should be always saying these are the correlates. With the change in the event, we saw also these, because of the change in these regressors, we saw this change, but we cannot say this change has a causal relationship. So then one will ask, you may ask, what is then the purpose of research? We can simply do, but then I told that every research, whatever we say, the properties of research, the main properties of research in actual life is there are two things. One is budget, another is time. How much time you have, how much budget you have. Then what is your mandate is. So depending upon that, so you find out. Now, why these determinants and correlates are important? Because determinants and correlates, to understand these two concepts, are very important to specify the nuances of the process. Because I told that research process, it's not that whether you are doing repetitive research or you're doing innovative research. The most important thing is that how much this research process you have understood and how you are narrating it to your funding agency or the audience, that how you are narrating this process. So this process, to understand this process, you have to be very, very clear that you are talking about correlates or you are talking about the determinants. As I said, in most of the cross-sectional studies, it is actually we find out the correlation, but we present them as causality, which is wrong. Now, what is its implication on policy? Because a policy, if it is you are saying something from a cross-sectional study as a causality, then you are giving an indication to the policymaker that these determinants or these factors are actually causing the change in that for better or for the worse. So you have to be very careful to narrate. But if you say, ki, no, I am not saying, I'm not certain, but still I can say that education has some impact on women empowerment. Education, there are two ways of education and empowerment. Example, you recall. One will say that if women are educated till graduation level, this is 3.5 times likely they will report a atrocity against women. Now, here somebody will say the education has a causal relation with the reporting of crime against women. It's not. It's a correlation. Unless the same sample has been revisited or again and again you have to go and see the same phenomenon, then this causality, the process of causality starts from correlation, but its repetitive nature, then it's control how much you have taken in the controlled environment, because you'll find out in certain African countries now, researchers are finding out with very low level education, they are finding out the atrocities against women are being reported with much greater than one can expect from a country like India. What has happened, even if there is not much change in education, but in certain African countries, there are very strong societal support against atrocities against women. There are churches, there are missions, there are NGOs. If something, because many of the countries in Africa, they faced long wars, civil wars, where women are mostly victims. So the developed institutions, wherever the women is affected by the violence, they have a they have institutions to respond, which is perhaps because our country has a different experience. It is much more stable, but for certain stakeholders like women, they certain in our countries, but we have not developed that kind of proactive institutions apart from National Commission for Women or something, which have faced a lot of budget constraint. So as a policy researcher, if let's say that example from Gujarat will take, so what can be a policy suggestion that make every women overnight postgraduate, every eligible women graduate or postgraduate, then they will report. It will take time. One day all women cannot be, and it's a gradual process. There are much younger women who will enter to that age cohort, then you can educate. So what you are we are going to likely find out a kind of a correlation, not a causation. But what are the process? Once the women is educated, then that women may be more aware about the rights, legal options, institutions to seek justice for herself or for the other. So this is how this language of the process has to be understood by the researcher, and that only keep your research, even if the hypothesis is not innovative, but your finding is certainly innovative. Your research finding, your research is certainly very important piece of contribution to understand. So with that, I'll complete today's lecture. Anything else if you want to know, we can have 10-15 minutes discussion now. Hello audience,
Dear participants, any question regarding the
you ask anything you ask, because did not I kept it as a kind of a much open-ended today, because of
Sir,
the circumstances, but we find, I think that some useful information I have given you. We can always discuss for another 15 minutes.
sir, am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are audible.
Sir, there is a lot of policy research are going on.
Hmm.
There is a more quality research on issues,
Hmm.
but that government they're taking serious on this policy research on in implementations. This is my question, sir. Is the government are taking this research in the implementation?
See, this is a very important question. I'll not sideline this question. This is a generic question, but it has a lot of important aspects to it. The problem is the kind of rat race in research we are into, where you do or die for research. Then the thing is that whether it's like, no, if somebody makes a kelowna or a handicraft, whether it has a market or not. So the market for research, when it has come into mainstream, that research output, apart from knowledge, it has a intrinsic revenue aspect. It has its economics, it has its revenue, and it has its own kind of management. So that they that change that every research is only for the to educate the policymaker. See, policymaker is they have also a system within which they work. Like we are ICSR organization, or we are under UGC, or we are under Ministry of different Science and Technology. So we have a working framework. So like that, who are the policymakers? How these policymakers have defined? If I ask somebody define a policymaker, who is a policymaker? In a district, a collector, or in an if it is a rural development program, DRDA, the Panchayat Raj Department, Panchayat Raj. So who are these policymakers? And these policymakers all are in homogeneity in the power hierarchy? No.
Sir,
The mandate
sir,
for the
I,
policymakers. Hello.
I think they are not policymakers. They
Hmm.
are in execution, sir. I think.
No, the policymakers always we understand who are the policymakers. Let's see. If I tell you from a project I am currently doing, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. So Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana has a very clear cut top to bottom approach where how many houses, how many different kinds of houses you can make is already given in a manual. But in the end, what they have written? They have written who will get the benefit will be decided by the Gram Sabha and its functionaries and the Panchayat Secretary. So, the policy on Pradhan Mantri Awas may be made by a Minister of Rural Development at Government of India level with a lot of experts. But then they are now giving different hierarchies. They are giving certain roles to states, certain roles to districts, certain roles to blocks, certain roles to panchayats. So they all are policymakers in their own. Like a block person will decide when to do a social audit for Pradhan Mantri Awas. So it is a very important aspect of Pradhan Mantri Awas. So how you can say that he is not a policymaker in that sense? The policymaker is not to promulgate what you are saying about guidelines. No, it's educations also. So the policymaker has a role to not only make policy but to see how it is being executed. It may be have different names. That's how in academics what I have done that the stakeholder called policymaker, we have not told, we have not defined who is this policymaker. Is it a collector? Is it a department secretary? Is it the experts hired for the department who are now a lot of departments are hiring people with experts, maybe graduate people also they are going as interns, they are also policymakers. So in that way the policymakers are not in homogeneity. So as a researcher then what you say, I'll say from my practical thing that somebody who has initiated that research to restrict your policy making suggestion to that person or that agency itself, then only, because let's say that study is sponsored by, let's say, a state department. So naturally the secretary I have to report for my research. He will the person who will receive the final output. If in that report I told something which is actually for the Ministry of Rural Development, Government of India, not for Government of Gujarat, then how and what position he will be there to implement it? So it is huge mistake. If I tell all the policy has to be done by the district collector level or at the panchayat level, then as a secretary of a different department, how he will be in a position to execute it? So that's why for you as a researcher, if you are getting an opportunity to work for a policymaker, first understood that what is his mandate and how far he can go and what he wants. Sometimes as a researcher, we got overzealous, telling that we know much more than you. So that person is every day in field. So we have a position because we are already always, let's say, going on what is happening in rural housing. So we have much more facts with us. But he has also very equally strong facts from ground. Then you will find, it is my personal experience, I've seen many of the researchers become, they because don't want to listen from somebody what the funding agency wants to know. They instead tell what funding agency should ask and should know. So this kind of mismatch when it happens, then this entire process of policy making and helping working for policy crash. Always, that's why I told research is possible only in harmony. Research is not possible in confrontation. Research is to listen others, then make others to listen you, not by force, but through your power of your argument, power of your presentation. So that's how research is very much a kind of a non-violent activity where every stakeholders should listen each other. And as researchers like ours, you are young people, we have also gone through that process, we have also seen it. You will find that most of the successful researchers who are now in a position to head different organizations and others, you will find that their approach, they are much more calm. They listen to everyone. They will tell you whatever is asked of you. But many of young researchers has this problem that they think they got an opportunity to give a mouthful to the person who is on the other side of the table. So that approach must not be there. Okay. Then anything else, please? Anything else?
Uh,
Hello?
no, sir. No, sir. No.
Any questions?
Hello? Any questions? Feel free, no problem.
No,
Sir,
sir. No, sir.
I have another question, sir, regarding this only on policy research.
Huh.
Regarding women rights safety,
Huh.
we have that Nirbhaya Fund for Women's Safety, sir. You know that it
See,
was created.
tell me.
It was created after the 2012 Delhi gang rape. After the so much research policies, it was created by the central government, but it was unutilized due to the bureaucratic delays and poor implementation. Even after the so many research policies also there, I think it's one of the drawback by the government. So many funds, so many laws also is there, anti-defection laws, age, and we have a really agricultural laws recently that government repealed after the farmer protest. These laws are created based on the policy research.
See, it is, see, you, whatever you told, Ajay, it is are very important but very broad questions. It has two different aspects to it. Any institution cannot work in isolation. Like like arts, or a college or university or any agency, any department. See, there are lot of things in our constitution. If we follow our constitution by letter and spirit, many problems will not come. But it does not happen that way. With many stakeholders, we think that they will support a cause. They don't, because lot of we got inter command vested interest. So when as a researcher, you have to always look at what threat to the solution. That will be possible if you identify who are the stakeholders. Like for the example, Nirbhaya. Nirbhaya is a guideline which every state has been following. If they are following, they are allocating budget to it. Every year the budget is increasing, manpower is increasing. Now many block levels also you find by code women police officers trained, armed, but still atrocity against women are not coming down. So is it, are you going to, we can say that reveal Nirbhaya? But the problem is we have created an institution Nirbhaya,
Sir, your
which
audio is
perhaps eh,
your audio is not clear, sir.
my audio is clear.
It's not clear.
Is it clear now?
Hello.
Huh? But you are clear to me.
Now it's clear, sir.
Okay. So what happened when Nirbhaya thing comes as an institution we created, but you'll find that lot of whatever many my knowledge to my knowledge on this issue, there is lot of inter-agency connections which are lacking. That Nirbhaya cannot work in isolation. You cannot just open a Nirbhaya chair in a police station and say that all women go and seek justice there. There is has to be a lot of support system. The entire system has to support, let's say, Nirbhaya directive. Like we are very much proactive in a SCST case or any case related to, let's say, dowry deaths and other things. So that kind of urgency, that kind of thing, which is only possible when we provide lot of budget and manpower, and also a lot of interagency collaborations are there. So this is just an example. I think that you cited this. Many government policies we say it is not working, but the problem is that always we see a part of failure because we think that that is the greatest discovery we made, but we did not find, we did not take as a researcher. We should also make an effort to see that how much people got benefited through Nirbhaya Act. So that itself, the women, how many women are now confident to travel for a livelihood to another city, knowing that they have this kind of legislations which will protect them or give them justice if they face some difficulty. So that totality picture, as a researcher, we have to see a picture in totality because parts are important, but the sum of parts is not equal to the totality. So that's how we have to look at it, that any institution or any law is only work, it will only work when the complementing agencies or complementing legislations will also work in tandem. Because what is happening now, why many cases against women are not going to the final round, because many women under societal pressure they are withdrawing or they are ready for the compromise. Even the women's family are settling for a song. So that kind of informal practices. So when we say it, when we talk about how a formal institution, formal organization is not working, that means some informal activities are in practice, or informal institutional arrangements are there, like khap panchayat league, this that. So which is actually creating hurdle for the institution to deliver. That's why I told, as a researcher, we have to always understand what is the underlying process. I can say that remove all inequality in a day. If a parliament passes a law, there will be no inequality tomorrow. If anybody tells inequality is there, it's a punishable offense. You will find nobody will tell there is inequality. And I'm giving an example. Don't take it, don't quote it or. So this is not the way we work. In a democratic society, we have to work with many positive and many otherwise forces. We cannot say negative. We'll say those who are not agree to us. So that's how a researcher's job is, always for a synthesis, to work towards a synthesis, to find out the middle ground, to find out the meeting point, that how things can be seen from different perspective, and given the constraints, given different stakeholders' interests, how the best solution can be there. That's why I told we should not be, as a researcher, we should not be partisan. We should not get into the, we having a political view of own or political person is good, but as a researcher, we should always be having kind of a perspective where all views are, we are able to accommodate. Anything else?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. Participants, please turn on your camera for take a picture.
Some people have left. Bhagyasri, Ma,
Please,
Mahantes,
please, all of you, turn on your camera.
and Bires have. Nah, Bires has a request. So two people have left. It was boring for them, or they know about this. Was this useful for you, for the participants?
Yes, sir.
Because
Yes, sir. It's
Yes, sir.
for
useful, sir.
second time I am taking this class, because nowadays a lot of things are already there in public in Google, but still people, I found young researchers, some of the basics they should know. Okay, so tomorrow we'll talk about something in statistics.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir, Dr. Mishra, sir, for your for sharing your valuable inputs. We really appreciate your time and effort, sir. I thank to all the participants for listening patiently. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you all for this opportunity.